The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it.
You are now listening to the Outsiders Podcast, the most exciting and hard-hitting show on the net. And now, bringing it hard as always on the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL, here are your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
Getting ready to go ahead and bring Patrick Johnson on the line, of course, Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a receiver on that team and former Oregon Duck. So we're going to go ahead and bring him on here in just a minute.
Yeah, he was a track star at Oregon, running back in California in high school. He grew up wanting to go to USC, but they said he was too small to play running back, and they wanted him to play defense. 3 schools recruited him as a wide receiver. He chose Oregon, one of the best track schools, probably the best track school in the nation. He could also play football there. That's what he loved. Goes on to the Ravens to play with Priest Holmes, Deion Sanders, Rod Woodson, Shannon Sharp. Who am I forgetting? Ray Lewis.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
That one. And wins a Super Bowl. Great story. Great to hear from Patrick Johnson. We can't wait to have him on.
Good. Let's pull him up. And ladies and gentlemen, we are fortunate enough right now to be joined by a very special guest, Patrick Johnson, former NFL player, former Oregon Duck. Patrick, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. And how's it going down there in Texas, my man?
Oh, it's pretty good. It's going great. Thanks for having me on. Just down here trying to stay cool.
Well,
let's try to beat the heat a little bit.
Well, absolutely, and I'll tell you what, it is late May, almost June, not a lot of football talk going on right now, so that's why we had to give you a call and get the football momentum going, get the juices flowing, because it'll be August before we know it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Give us a little bit of downtime so we can speculate on how this year's going to unfold, but yeah, it's going to be interesting here, though.
Oh, always is, and of course that's what we do here, but we want to kind of get into to you and your career. You, of course, coming from the University of Oregon, and I want to get into that first because you were an Oregon Duck almost before it was the in thing to be an Oregon Duck. You didn't have all the Nike cool uniforms yet, but you did play in a Rose Bowl. Go back to your time at Oregon. You're also a track star, of course. Oregon, one of the great track schools in America. Go back to your time at Oregon and just kind of take us through what it was like being a double sports star there at the University of Oregon and also playing in a Rose Bowl, the school's first, I believe.
Yeah, well, Oregon. Looking back, I'm very, very thankful that my parents kind of steered me to make that decision. Playing 1 year of high school football and really 2 years of track. Coming on in track, I wound up having a really good track season after I signed a letter of intent to play football. And I only played 1 year, so I got a lot more attention from a lot of different schools. But it was so late in the year that if I would have forward my letter of intent, I would have had to sit out a year. But my parents just said, you've already made a decision. Just go ahead and go to Oregon. And Oregon was one of the only schools that recruited me at the time that was going to allow me to the opportunity to play 2 sports. So getting to Oregon, it was great. It really was a great experience for me. The fact that, when we went in there, I remember they talked about our recruiting class, and they said that it was one of the worst recruiting class ever in the history of the program, because we didn't really have any, I know, right? We didn't really have any big name recruits. And I mean, this was in the early 90s, almost mid-90s, and we just didn't have like the big 4 or 5 star big name recruits. But saying that, we wound up going to the Rose Bowl that year. We had 3 or 4 true freshmen play that season. Kind of the rest is history. That Rose Bowl we went to then was the second ever in the history of the school at the time. But we followed that up and went to the Cotton Bowl the next year, and we wound up missing the bowl game in 1996, but then following up with the Las Vegas Bowl victory, which was the first bowl win, I think, in the history of the school. But it was great. And then track. Obviously everybody associates track and field to Oregon because it's Tracktown USA, and all the big connections to Nike, and how that brand originated at the university. I mean, that kind of is an animal in its own right. And I really had a good experience running track there. I ran really only 2 years before I finally made the decision to focus solely on football, so that I could make a potential run to try to get in the NFL. But it wasn't easy though.
Back in high school, you played running back, and then you transitioned to wide receiver going to Oregon. Were you confident in that transition, and how big a help was Kristen McLemore?
Well, playing running back in high school and then going to play wide receiver in college, I mean, I did get recruited to play running back by other schools, but quite frankly, at 160 pounds, maybe nowadays with the advent of the spread offense and you got a lot of smaller running backs that are playing the position. Back then, it was more pro-style offenses, and you needed to be at least as a freshman, at least 185, 190 pounds, to even have a chance to even be a running back in college football at the time, because it was just I formation, tailback, fullback. We needed a bigger guy. But with that being said, you get to Oregon. Get moved to wide receiver. It was good in a way because I didn't have any bad habits at all. I had good size to play the position, and I had the ability to run. And no question, Kristen McLemore made my transition 1,000 times easier. I mean, if it really wasn't for him, I wouldn't have. Well, I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed the success that I have, because with everything that he was taught and his ability and his want to teach younger players. See, that's the thing. Like, you might have a good player in college, but he might not pass on his knowledge to younger guys behind him. But he was a very unselfish person. He taught me pretty much everything that I knew going in, and it made me such a confident player just by watching him and learning everything that he did, because he knew how to run every route in the book. And he was one of the best that I've ever seen. He's probably one of the best college receivers that I've ever seen, from a standpoint of being NFL ready in terms of knowing how to play the position like an NFL pro. And that goes to the credit of our system that we ran at the time. It was all NFL. And then when I got to the NFL, I had a very slight learning curve, even the terminology, even the route tree. Like, I knew all that stuff when I got there, and that's why I was able to get on the field much earlier once I got to Baltimore.
Well, I want to talk more about the University of Oregon program that has become kind of the it program in college football. Chip Kelly and the things he did there at Oregon, taking them to the heights that they've been. They played for a BCS championship. They've been all over ESPN. They've been featured in primetime games. Their uniforms are the stuff of legends. Nike is right there. Autzen Stadium's been renovated. How do you feel about the fact that kind of you and your class that came in there, in the mid-'90s, laid the groundwork for Oregon to kind of get them on the map, and then also talk about how you feel about being such a proud alum, as I'm sure you are, about where the program is now?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, I bleed green and yellow. It's awesome to see Oregon, just the whole athletic program and where it is now. I mean, and we always had good athletic teams, men and women, but they're nationally recognized, all of them. Like, the softball team is in the top 3. The baseball team is in the top 3 or 4 or 5. The football team is in the top 10. The basketball team is now playing in the tournament. I mean, they might have a ping pong team that might be nationally ranked. I don't even know. But it is awesome to see how well and how advanced everything has become. And it just goes to show that, when you're actually a student athlete and you're going out and you're performing well, there's a bunch of youngsters out there that are watching, and they're watching you, and you do well, and that makes them want to go to the school, and it's kind of snowballed, and it's great to see. It really is great to see, and this with the other thing that's good about Oregon is it has been marketed masterfully nationally. I mean, and I think that's where you get a lot of the notoriety from. I mean, to to be honest, I mean, Oregon is, you just look at the football program. If you look back to maybe 2000, is the football program any better than it was then? Depending on who you ask, they may say no, or they may say yes. But if you keep in mind, when Joey Harrington was a quarterback for Oregon, they were in the hunt to go to the national championship then. So I don't really know if the program is any better now than it was then, but they are definitely, the marketing department has gotten a lot better, because now Oregon is like almost a household name. I mean, I'm down here in Texas, and you got kids that want to go to Oregon. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, that definitely would not be the case. So it's a good day. I mean, and they're doing very well.
In 1998, you're drafted in the second round by the Baltimore Ravens, and you're no stranger to big games playing in the Rose Bowl with Oregon. But what did it feel like when you made the Super Bowl in 2000, Super Bowl 35, with the Baltimore Ravens against the New York Giants?
Well, sometimes, a lot of it's almost like it's not really happening. Let's just put it that way. I was on a team in 2000, and I think it might have been last year, that there was a vote on NFL.com of the greatest football teams ever assembled, and we narrowly got beat out by the 1976 Oakland Raiders as the best professional football team ever assembled. That's how good that team was. And as I look back on it, you're not going to, just with the salary cap and free agency and things of that nature, you're never going to be able to assemble a team like that. I mean, we had, just on the defensive side of the ball, I think all but maybe 2 of those starters were first or second round picks. Everybody. Let's just say even 8 out of 11 were first or second round picks. Like, you just don't have that anymore in the NFL. And even and on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, that team had so many Hall of Famers on it that when we went out and played, we were just flat out better than other teams, just better than they were. I mean, we went 5 games without scoring an offensive touchdown and won all 5 of them. So, I mean, it was a very, very, very impressive team. I mean, I'm very thankful to, and I can say that I'm proud to say that I was a high draft pick by Ozzie Newsome, but that means something. I mean, if he selects you, then that means that you're doing something right. I didn't necessarily have the numbers that I would have liked over my career, but I won a lot of games. I was on a lot of good teams. So, I mean, it was great. But the Ravens, shoot, they just won another Super Bowl. And they're always in the hunt every year. And they'll be in the hunt again this year. So it's really good to see how well even Baltimore has even ascended, since they first got there in 1996.
Going back to that 2000 Ravens team, you guys had maybe one of the top 5 defenses in NFL history. Now, it's clear that you guys had good chemistry because you won a Super Bowl. You can't do that without good team chemistry. But was there any animosity at all during the season, in the locker room, in the media, anything between the defense versus the offense, with the offense not pulling the amount of weight that the defense was?
No. There's a beautiful thing about what we had there was a great deal of team cohesiveness. Great deal of team cohesiveness. And there were times when, the offense, even though we might not have had a lot of production, you got to look at the way you go about winning games as well. A team, you can win a game with two of your 3 phases being well, right? It can be your defense and your special teams, or your offense and your special teams, or your offense and your defense. But we won games that season all kinds of ways. We beat Jacksonville at home. I can't remember the score, but it was like 41-38. So our offense, by all accounts, was able to put out enough points to win that game. There's some games that we won by 1 point. Our kicking game was excellent. At the time, Jermaine Lewis was arguably the best return man in the game. So we were special all the way around, but there was never any animosity anywhere. I mean, defense was so good at times, they're like, look, just get us 9 points.
Yeah.
Just get us 9 points. That's all we need is 9 points. Nobody is going to score 10 points on us. So, let me know, but we never had that. We never had that problem. I mean, Brian Billick did a great job. Brian Billick and the entire staff in the front office did a great job of assembling the right people and putting the right people on that team too, because that plays a large factor in it as well. The NFL, they don't just sit up in those offices all day looking at film and just basing it off of people's ability. They also interview these players. They also find out what type of people they are off the field, personalities, blending these personalities together. They intentionally don't select guys in free agency and in the draft because they might not have the right temperament to basically succeed in that particular environment. You guys know that. So they did a great job of putting the right mix of guys together, and it worked. It worked easy. We had no problem.
Talk about the right
The
mix.
only distraction that we had was the issue with Ray, but that wasn't even a distraction.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask you about, because, of course, Ray Lewis, not so much the trouble he found himself in, because that's, ESPN's kind of done that to death. We've all been there. It's a long, it happened many years ago. But Ray Lewis is a guy who did just retire. He retired with the Super Bowl. We ask a lot of people about Ray Lewis, but I believe you are the first teammate of Ray Lewis that we've interviewed. So it's important that we ask you just how important Ray Lewis is to the football team, both physically and mentally, the way he is able to motivate a team and just his physical skills in general. Can you just go into what it's like being a teammate of his and how important he is for a football team?
Well, I'll put it like this. Ray Lewis, he's a good friend of mine. We don't speak every day or we don't hang out or anything like that, but he's a good friend of mine. And I will say this. Ray Lewis it's less of his athletic ability that impacts the team and more of his persona, his ability to lead, his ability to demand the utmost of his teammates, and his ability to get his teammates to perform higher than they normally would be able to. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there's very, very, very few people in sports that have that ability. There's probably very few people on the planet that have that kind of ability. It's something that's hard to explain. I told a friend of mine that, I said, when Ray basically said that this was going to be his last season at the end of the year last year, I knew that the Ravens were going to go all the way and win the Super Bowl. Because there was no way that any of those players on that team were going to allow it not to happen. If Ray Lewis did not announce that it was going to be his last season, I don't know if the Ravens would have gone to the Super Bowl at all. I just don't think they would have. I just don't think they would have. But it's hard to explain what he brings outside. His intangibles. You look at a quarterback and they look at his arm strength. They look at his ability to anticipate throws. Can he make all the throws? How is he when he gets pressured? But then they also talk about his intangibles. How is he when he's down by 14 points? Can he play injured? What is he like with his teammates? Like the intangibles. And the middle linebacker really is a quarterback, but on defense. But his intangibles are probably may not ever be matched again. And it's one of those things that you almost have to be there to experience it. Obviously, you can look on YouTube and you can watch him talking to a whole bunch of high school players and things of that nature, and then you can kind of see what I mean. It's very few people have that ability, and when he talks, that's really him. mean, he's not putting on a show. It ain't fake. It's not anything like that. That's who he is. And I'm lucky that I had the opportunity to be a teammate of his for 6 years. I mean, I'm real happy about that. I mean, it was great playing with Ray Lewis.
Now, being in Kansas City, we obviously have to ask you about Priest Holmes. He was a teammate of yours. He was a running back to Jamal Lewis at the time. Did you see him being able to transition to Kansas City and do the things he did, even though we had one of the best offensive lines? Do you think he had the great talent that he showed, or do you think it was a product of the great offensive line here in Kansas City?
Well, the year before Jamal got drafted number 5, Priest Holmes rushed and led the Ravens in rushing, and he ran for about 1,200 yards that year. So Priest Holmes wasn't a slouch when he was playing for the Ravens. He was starting. You know, the Ravens and how their draft philosophy is this: we take the highest rated person on our board. Even though Priest Holmes was a starter and he was the incumbent starter, Jamal Lewis was still sitting there at number 5, so they had to take him. But it was no slight against Priest at all. They didn't draft Jamal because they weren't high on Priest. Jamal was basically there. If Jamal wasn't there, they would have took the next person on their board. And that's how they draft. They don't draft for need. They draft for, they have a board, and they say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when they pick, if the person that they want is there, then they take it. And a lot of teams are starting to have that philosophy. They're basically going out to players that let's just say you need a running back, but you go ahead, you need a receiver. He's not even high on your board, but you have a need for him, so you draft him much higher than where he should be drafted, and that's how you end up having to switch GMs every 3 years, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So, but pretty awesome in Baltimore. But, you know, with all being there, Jamal having that success, Priest Holmes leaving, going to Kansas City, I knew that would happen anyways, because he was really good. So,
can you tell us about your sports social media networking site, rawteams.com? You're also a consultant for fishduck.com, and your Patrick Johnson Foundation. Let us know a little bit more about those.
Well, you know, Ray Chutani, who was a real good friend of mine, he actually was a punter for UNLV, and he played in Tennessee for the Titans for a little bit. We've been friends for about 10 or 15 years, and he said, man, let's think about another concept that's kind of like Facebook, but it's mostly driven towards sports. And we came up with rawteams.com, and I mean, it's a site that, you know, still in development. We're looking at other ideas and potentially a rebrand. But it's just one of those projects that we put together, and it's not used as much as we would like, but it's something that, you know, it's getting better in this development. So we'll see what happens with that. And, you know, Fish Duck is a site that, you know, they basically did video analysis of Oregon games. And, you know, I would basically go in and, you know, maybe try to help them raise a little bit of money, help them basically forward some of their initiatives and things of that nature. They wound up having an issue with the actual video because the Pac-12 basically sent out a memo saying that, you know, you can no longer basically use, because now they have that Pac-12 network, right? So you can no longer use video because it's copyright infringement now. So at this time, they're looking at other ways to basically promote their site. So, but that's how things of that nature are. They're always under development, and they can always change due to certain laws and things of that nature. But that's just another project. And those guys are up in Oregon, and I help them as much as I can when I can. And, you know, my foundation, basically, we like to try to serve the needs of everyone if we can. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and they said, well, your mission statement kind of seems like you want to try to change the world. And I said, well, we realize that we can't, but we're going to try to. So
Absolutely.
We do a little bit of everything. We're working at this time to get a little bit more streamlined and focused on maybe 2 or 3 initiatives, which will make things easier for us, because if, you know, one minute we're trying to scholarship money together for kids to go to junior college, and then we're trying to put together a running camp and do some football camps or something like that. I mean, it's a daunting task, and I can't do it all by myself either. So just a matter of getting other individuals that are interested in kind of helping out and serving the needs of other people. That's what that goal is, because I didn't get here by myself. I had a lot of help to get here. So that's just my way of being able to give back to people.
Oh, well, it's wonderful. We wish you the best of luck with that, and hope people will check out all the projects. Patrick, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us today, talking some football here in late May, and I'm ready for the season now. You've got some really insightful topics, and I'm so thankful we were able to have you on today, Patrick. We really appreciate it.
Who you guys? What are your Super Bowl picks? Who's going to the Super Bowl this year?
The Super Bowl, my goodness, this puts us on the spot here. My default is always Patriots Packers, so that's always my default whenever I haven't had a lot of time for analysis. So
I think I'm going to go Patriots Seahawks. So
okay, there you go. Does that jive with you?
I'm going to take San Francisco and Denver.
Boo!
Denver.
You can't say that on a Kansas City podcast.
Hey, Denver's got the team to do it. We will see. Peyton Manning stays healthy and that fusion sticks. It'll happen.
They got that running. They got Monty Ball. Telling you.
True. Yeah, Ball is a good addition. We'll see. Denver's going to be the class of certainly our division here in the AFC West and possibly the AFC. Tom Brady though says he's throwing the ball like no other time in his career. Never bet against Tom Brady, right?
When is he not throwing the ball like no other time in his career? That guy's awesome.
That's a good point.
He's going to throw for 1 million yards like he did last year, but that's not the Patriots' problem.
Hey, it's going to be interesting. Can't wait. OTAs, of course, are going on right now. We're going to have training camp before we know it, and I'll tell you what, we cannot thank you enough. Patrick, let's do this again once we get closer to time for the season. We'll do a good NFL preview once we've all had a time to read over all the stats and get ready for this thing.
All right, you guys just let me know. I'll be glad to come on.
No, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and we will definitely stay in touch. We appreciate it.
Take care, Patrick.
Okay, see you. All right.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Great stuff. Great to hear stories from all the former athletes, former NFL players. We love it. That's what we do here on the Outsiders Podcast. Great to hear from Patrick Johnson, and just very, very glad to have had him on.
Great to hear about Priest Holmes. He was the starter before Jamal Lewis got there. He had 1,200 yards. He was a good back before he got to Kansas City. So those people saying Priest Holmes was only good because of the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, he was doing it in Baltimore before Jamal Lewis got there. Patrick Johnson testifies to that. And he comes to Kansas City and does even more here with a great offensive line, great offense, and the Admiral, the General, Trent Green under center.